So, Khenpo, when we talk about this sort of uncontrived true nature of sentient beings, the true nature that we are, often this is presented in different ways. You have some people presenting that through the aspect of emptiness, of how we are empty of inherent existence. Then there are also scholars who present it through luminosity, through the clarity and the lucidity of the mind. And then you have this, of course, known in Kagyu and Nyingma, particularly of the union of emptiness and luminosity. Can you tell a little bit more about how Buddha nature as the nature of one's mind is presented in the Nyingma tradition?
Yeah, in Nyingma tradition, especially in the inner Tantra teachings, then it's presented in terms of like Shiju, right? The ground Tantra, or basically Shiju Rangshin Hingitu Pikilko, which is kind of like spontaneously present mandala, which is saying that now there's a complete, not only just as a seed to Buddha nature, Buddhahood, but all the qualities of the kayas and the wisdom mind are present in this, our ground, and that can be, I think, presented according Mahayana, where is mostly, I would say, Mahayoga, where you see that in the in Sangin, was that Guryagarva?
Guryagarva.
Yeah, Guryagarva Tantra, where is explaining in detail the existence of all these kayas and wisdom mind within our nature of our mind. Then as you go higher, then in Dzogchen, then looks like it is almost like different, Dzogchen has, how should say, more specific method on how a teacher can introduce to the student in a unique bit instruction method to be able to recognize the Buddha nature, even though you are an ordinary person. Whereas, as you know, that Sutra teaching is saying that even in Jude Lama is saying that Buddha nature cannot be clearly understood by even the Bodhisattva in 10th Bhumi, right? So, yeah, so Nyingma found a way to bypass all this and able to.
So, one thing that you find in the Nyingma tradition is Buddha nature is studied primarily through the tantras, and particularly through the inner yogas, the inner tantras, Mahayoga, Anuyoga, and Atiyoga tantras. So there seems to be so much focus on studying Buddha nature through the tantras, starting all the way from, say, Padmasambhava's Mengatawe Tengwa, calendar views, and then, of course, you find, as you pointed out, the teachings in tantras like Guyagarbha Tantra, and then also coming down through Rongzom or Longchenpa or Jimilingpa until Mipham's times. Even how you mentioned earlier, right at the beginning, that you first heard about Buddha nature through ascertaining the 3 vows by Ngari Penchen Pema Ongel. Now, the first chapter is talking about the 9 jhanas and sort of brings very sort of directly the idea of how we are primordially already Buddhas. So is it fair to say Buddha nature is mostly studied in the Nyingma tradition through tantras? Can you tell basically a little bit more about how Buddha nature is studied in the Nyingma tradition, particularly in the Kshetras where you taught.
Yeah, well, so in all the Kshetras, as you also, the curriculums are pretty much same, right? And when we study about Buddha nature, then other than in Jit Lama, which is, we study for a few months only, and then in the past also, as a, somehow Nyingma were not that much emphasizing on sutra teachings generally. And of course, then in that way, then the study on Ji Lama was in the same way as it falls in the sutra, class. So maybe that was emphasized. But then either, as I said just now, through the pit instruction practices, or when you're studying in, you can see even in the Tantra also, maybe during the time of Longchenpa and Rongzom was very, I would say, very vibrant or, taken, but then maybe there was a decline, until maybe Miling Yapse time, right? And then again, there was maybe another decline or not that much emphasized. And then, until the time of Khenpo Shenga and there was another revival of further studying, and especially during Khenpo Shenga and Mihon Rinpoche's time, then, Nyingma was also studied both, Tonga Sungjuk, the studies. And before that was mostly, looks like, as per our chronological studies, and mostly emphasizing on the Tantras. And then maybe it is why it is so is because in Tantra is expressed more, selje zoksum, complete, clear, and in detailed explanation of the Buddha nature. So that's why I guess in Nyingma tradition, the ones who have a clear explanation, a teaching which is giving a clear explanation on Buddha nature. So then maybe Jut Lama and all this was not that much emphasized, like, some, especially Kaju. I think they are Jut Lama a lot, right?
Yes. Yeah, so we do find that difference, don't we, that in the, particularly say the Gelugpa tradition, Buddha nature is primarily approached or studied through the topic of Rik, of the spiritual gene, as part of their long study of Maitreya's Abhisamaya Alankara, the ornament of direct realization. When they do that particular text, they give a lot of time to the study of Rik or Gotra, the spiritual gene. And then in the Kaju, you definitely find so much focus on Julama. And in Nyingma, it's interestingly, there's not so much focus on Julama or the Rik in Abhisamaya Alankara, but I find your explanation very convincing that you go straight to the tantric presentation of Buddha nature, because there it is much more elaborate, much more clear, and much more complete. And actually, in a lot of Nyingma writings, one of the things you find is the chapter on the Shi, the Shiju. Like in Longchenpa's writings, they often start with the chapter on the sort of primordial ground from where we start. Then the same also with some Katok Lamas like Tekpe Chidel of Katok Kambadeshek. Quite a lot of Nyingma teachings seem to start from a chapter on Shi. So quite interesting that the Nyingmapas use the tantric perspective and focus more on that.